Pete Rose said he was coming clean.
Did you bet on baseball?
Yes, I did, and that was my mistake, not coming clean a lot earlier.
In 1989, baseball legend Pete Rose was banned for life from Major League Baseball for betting on his games, including those involving his own team, the Cincinnati Reds. During the 1978-79 season, the Boston College men's basketball team was implicated in a scandal that revolved around point shaving and covering spreads in games determined by the mob to fix. Fast forward to the present day, and sports betting itself just recorded the largest revenue in history at $10.92 billion in revenue last year. The landscape of sports betting has evolved dramatically, with its prevalence reaching unprecedented heights. Turn on SportsCenter, turn on ESPN, whatever it is, you're likely to see sports media personalities, social media, the announcers talking about betting lines, betting odds, who's going to cover, and all the different intricacies that go into sports gambling. While the legalization of sports betting has generated significant revenue for leagues, broadcasters, and betting operators alike, it has also raised serious questions about the potential for corruption within the sporting realm. With billions of dollars at stake, the temptation for individuals, including athletes, coaches, and officials, to manipulate outcomes for personal gain looms large. In the past couple of weeks, there have been two major instances of potential corruption within the sports world. NBA player Jontay Porter is being investigated by the NBA offices for potentially prop betting on his own stats. There have been multiple examples throughout the season where he mysteriously left games early on, and there were large bets placed on his undertotals for the game that night. One of the most prominent players in baseball, Shohei Ohtani's translator, is being investigated for significant gambling debts. He has racked up over $4 million in gambling debts, which Ohtani funded money for him to pay off. As of now, there's been no evidence of Ohtani's involvement in the operation, but there is speculation that he was involved, as the amount of money that was being bet by the translator, combined with their close relationship, makes it possible that he had a larger involvement than he is claiming. The issues of sports wagering not only include all the negative aspects for mainstream consumers that have been covered extensively by media, such as incurring debt, addiction, and all the other issues that arise from sports betting, but now we are beginning to peel back the layers of issues that are being caused by these leagues selling out and partnering with gambling companies and the legalization of sports betting overall. One of the primary challenges that has occurred because of this proliferation of sports betting is the risk of match fixing and point shaving scandals. The ability to place bets on a wide range of outcomes, from the final score to individual player performances, provides ample opportunity for different actors to influence the course of a game. Whether through direct involvement in manipulating outcomes or through insider information shared with third parties, the integrity of sports competitions is increasingly under threat. Therefore, even as Division I athletes, it's almost impossible to ignore how big and how mainstream sports betting has become. While there has been widespread studies done on the impact of sports gambling and how it's increased in revenue every year, there's more people betting every year, and how widespread it's become, there has not been any widespread studies on how many athletes themselves are participating in sports betting. Therefore, for my piece in my article, I talked to 50 current or former Division I student athletes to hear about how sports betting has influenced them and if they participate. Obviously, all of these student athletes were anonymous. The first question that I asked them was, how many of you have gambled on a college or professional sport? In my survey response, I received 36 responses out of the 50 that said they have gambled. 22 out of the 50 current or former athletes have gambled on their own sport, and 17 have gambled on a game they have participated in. While I knew that sports betting had an influence on the mainstream public, and also, again, like I mentioned, in our locker rooms and all that, I was very surprised by these numbers. I did not realize how many, current and former athletes were participating in something like this. I think this is pretty shocking personally. It potentially compromises the integrity of the sport that we love, the sports that we follow, that we spend so much time, effort, money caring about. And it was concerning to receive this data. And in my interviews, which I will also discuss, I got a little further into why they started gambling, what kind of stuff they're gambling on. And so I thought it was just interesting overall to see, how many people that are current and former athletes are actually participating in sports betting. So moving on to discussing some of the discussions that I had with some of these individuals over the phone. One of the more interesting discussions I had, I asked them what led to them getting involved in sports betting, how often they do it, what kind of stuff that they're betting on. They said one of the major reasons that they got involved in sports betting was a lot of their friends do it. And that was something that was kind of echoed by all the participants that I talked with outside of just a survey. A lot of them, they're on a college campus, their friends are doing it, it's around them all the time. So they get on an offshore book and they find a bookie that, is someone on their campus that they know, that they trust, and they use that to gamble through them. And I think that's one way that they kind of navigate without being able to be caught. Because obviously, if you're betting through one of those major book operators like FanDuel, DraftKings, Barstool Sportsbook, then there's a lot of integrity companies out there now, and so that will be caught pretty easily. So one way that, they kind of go around that is using friends and people on campus to bet through an offshore book account. And so that was one of the interesting things is, how much their friends influence them, which again, I think is because of how much sports betting just in general has increased, and how many people are being involved in it now. You're on a college campus and all your friends are always talking about it. And, if they're doing it, sometimes you want to do it. One of the other, kind of shocking things was obviously that number of 17 out of 50 being almost 50% of the people I interviewed gambling on a game they participated in was, a little bit shocking to me. And so going into discussions and talking about it a little bit more with people, they said there wasn't really anyone that had ever gambled against their team. Majority of the time, they were feeling confident about how their team practiced or the couple days before the game. And they were, feeling good about the game, so they bet on the team to win. So, majority of the time it seemed like they were betting on their team to win, which still is, pretty controversial. There haven't been any studies that have presented, this kind of data that this is such a significant issue. And similarly, I asked, why do something like this that could risk, your college career, your professional aspirations? And a lot of the people that participated were, college kids that were playing college sports but didn't have any aspirations to go pro. They thought, hey, I'm knowledgeable about this sport. I'm knowledgeable about the team. This is a easy way to, not an easy way, but a way to potentially make, some extra money. They found it, enjoyable to do that feeling, that adrenaline, that rush of hitting a bet, which I guess, influences a lot of people on why they participate. And so I thought that was another interesting finding from my interviews. And so, tying this all in, this is obviously extremely problematic. I'm not going to be the one to out these sources or do that, but no one's found something like this where there's this many people participating in something that, could shape collegiate sports. And so looking at, some of the ways that you can combat these potential, point shaving scandals or just, the overall corruption of athletes betting on their own sport or maybe their own team or themselves and their player props, or just any college sport in general, as none of that stuff is legalized. In response to a lot of these concerns, sports leagues and regulatory bodies have implemented various measures aimed at safeguarding the integrity of their sports. There's enhanced monitoring and surveillance systems, strict anti-corruption protocols. There's one integrity that has partnered with the Big 12 and is being implemented at the University of Houston that uses your phone number, your full name, your email, all that information. They have access to that, and if they see you betting, that gets triggered and would obviously lead to an investigation. But still, there's a battle to preserve the integrity of sports. Like I said, there's still ways to kind of exploit these integrity and regulatory bodies by using offshore books or using friends' names or whatever it may be. And so I think overall, my whole reason for kind of doing this is I've been extremely concerned by how much sports betting has just consumed the sports world overall. When I turn on ESPN after we play a game at night, they're always talking about the lines, who covered, or if I'm watching the NBA, before the game, they have the betting lines on it. They have player prop lines. I go on Twitter, and half the tweets that I see, even though it's not something that I follow, is, people, my friends, and just random sports media talking about betting lines. And so I just think it's extremely problematic. This has become such a constant theme in our industry, and something that is just there around us 24/7 now, especially just protecting the integrity of the game, protecting the integrity of the athletes, and as sports betting continues to grow, I wish they would just outlaw it overall, but obviously the leagues and the people in charge are trying to make as much money as possible and use this for one of the ways that they can create financial gain and continue making different revenue streams. And so, I think we need to continue, a need for proactive measures to mitigate the risks associated with how widespread sports betting is. I think there needs to be a way to figure out, where these athletes are betting and how we can access that. And obviously, I think there needs to be strict measures and, strict consequences for those who participate in sports betting. And then hopefully, over time, as we continue to gain more data and more information there, maybe there will be hope that these leagues will change their stance on sports betting and go back to what it was like before. There will be a decrease in the media as people realize how problematic this issue is. But as of now, the whole point of my article and my presentation was, look at all the different scandals in the last couple of years in the sports betting world. Look at how much money and how much activity was just being thrown around in sports betting in general. And obviously it's increasing every year with how many users are participating, how much revenue is being shared, and just how much it's increasing on social media, broadcast, television, newspapers, whatever form of media it is. And then, I wanted to see, due to my ability to access a lot of athletes in various different sports and various different levels, I want to see, how much these last couple of years have changed, how many people are participating in sports betting. So that was kind of where the shocking numbers came in. I was very surprised to find out, there was this many athletes that gamble on college and professional sports, and especially their own sports. So my conclusion from all of that is, while, the NCAA and the Big 12 and these conferences may be trying to, implement safeguards and, partnering with these organizations, there also needs to be a giant shift back towards limiting how much we're talking about sports betting and how influential it's becoming in our leagues and in our everyday culture. And so, yeah, that's my presentation. I appreciate you all listening.